Okay. Hey, everybody, this is Anna Masker. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today on cash conservation strategies. Our company is ProfitLink. We do CFO advisory and crypto accounting for companies in the tech and blockchain space. We also serve as professional services organizations as well, acting as their outsourced accounting and finance department. So in the midst of this crisis, I wanted to talk about cash conservation strategies, but introduce you to our speakers today. Again, I'm Anna Masker, and Mel Comer is my partner at ProfitLink. We are the leadership team. We have a team of CFOs and staff accountants that work with us to service our clients in that outsourced accounting and finance area. So today we're going to talk about cash conservation strategies, but it's really important that you take that first step and know your cash runway. That means understanding what the long-term plan is for your business. That means pulling together your numbers, and we're forecasting out for our clients 12 to 18 months and putting scenarios in there as well to kind of game out if business drops by 10%, this is what we need to do. If the business drops by 20%, this is what we need to do. Having those long-term plans gives you that global view and where you can kind of put things on paper. Then the second thing we recommend too for our clients is the 13-week cash forecast. And that's kind of your playbook, right? That's actually bringing it down to a much granular level of looking at revenues coming in and expenses going out on a week-by-week basis. This is going to give you some of that tactical knowledge you'll need to manage your cash. So today we're going to talk about a lot of tactics that influence both your customers, your vendors, and also your employees. So knowing kind of where you stand in from a cash run rate perspective lets you know how severe your actions that you need to take. So the three parts of a critical components of a good cash conservation strategy are part defense, part offense, and part speed. So we'll talk about cost cutting first.
Hi, thanks, Anna. It's Mel. And first, we look at our cost cutting process with three levels. And level one, let me just back up. Level one is what we call slash and burn the large expenses. And that's really where we want to, where we have the opportunity to have the largest impact on the business, because we are going after the big ticket items. And whether that's, delaying equipment purchases or holding off on a project that you have been working on or thinking of working on, but it's a long time between when you start the project and when you'll see positive cash flow out of it. Those are the kinds of things to really attack in this first level, the first round of cost cutting. Headcount certainly comes with that because it's often the largest single cost of a business. And some people have already, made moves in terms of either reducing positions or furloughing their teams. What we've also seen are people who are thinking about, our clients are thinking about reducing outside services. And by that, they really look at it through the lens of, is this something that I really need? And then the second lens they use is, and if I do really need it, can I do this myself? And that's really important versus paying somebody else, is to think about what kind of things you can take back in-house. Of course, there are implications and challenges of that, because you don't want to bog your team, your existing team down with doing things that it's, far more effective to have lower cost people do certain activities. So always a challenge there. The second level that we talk about are the small expenses, and there's often substantial money to be found. I call this looking under the couch cushions, and it's amazing what you can find by reviewing your P&L in close detail. For example, an area actually is one of my favorite couch cushions are subscriptions. So where that $39 a month didn't seem like a big deal for that app or that platform that you're able to access, it adds up, and that's $500 a year. And then you multiply that by, 5 or 10 of those, it really turns out to be some substantial money. And then there are other things lurking in those monthly charges that you just pay on an ongoing basis, whether it's unused licenses for seats on particular software, or unused phones, phone lines, anything like that. And particularly if you've downsized, then the opportunity for more savings there presents itself, because a lot of these licenses are based on either heads or seats that you buy or rent, and volume of transactions. So you want to make sure that you're right sizing all of your subscriptions and purchased services. Level 3 is probably my favorite, because it enables you to get creative with your cost cutting. And by that, what I mean is that, you've got opportunities with your headcount, okay, moving salaried people to hourly, or perhaps introducing an incentive compensation program, which maybe if you can reduce salaries, reduce someone's base, but make it up in incentive comp after they've sold or done something that generates cash, then you may not actually be reducing costs, but you're delaying payment, which to me sometimes is almost as good as reducing your costs. You definitely want to look at rent, because that's always another big ticket item on your P&L. And can you get some abatement? Can you defer your costs? Can you, potentially use your security deposit as some payment, or a portion of that? Anything for you to reduce the amount of cash that's going out of your business, it's good to look at. And finally, you want to look at, controlling the checkbook. And that's really probably being a little bit more hands-on than you've been in a long time. But it's really time to roll up your sleeves and look at what's showing up on your credit card statements, and also, directly authorizing disbursements to make sure you're controlling not only the money going out, but the timing of the money going out. Also, I think, there's a whole area I call negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. And that's, not only with your landlord, but with vendors, to see if you can delay payments. If you can stretch payments, you can get better terms, you can get discounts. Credit card companies, see what kind of deals they have, see if you can delay payments on that without penalizing your credit worthiness. Your bankers, mortgage companies, and so on. And then, there's also another opportunity, I think, in slowing cash outflow or eliminating it is, kind of going back to old school barter. Whereas, if you have a good or service that you can offer to someone who has a good or service that you need, and you don't have to exchange cash, then I think that can be a pretty attractive way to keep your business afloat.
So the next strategy is really maximizing the cash outflow. So we talked about a lot of cost cutting and preserving cash, but it's also preserving your inflows of cash as well. So it's important that you maximize the money coming in, and that primarily is from your clients. So it's important that you assess the risk and the of your clients and their receivables. You probably have already reached out to all your critical clients, finding out how they're doing, what's going on. But make sure you're continually having those conversations, because situations are changing weekly, if not daily, whether that's executive orders of what's non-essential businesses that are being shut down, understanding the downstream impacts of their clients as well. So if they're, say, a B2C company and they're one of your clients, they're really going to be struggling. So understanding the upstream impact of that. So once you get an assessment of your clients and the receivables, you want to make sure that you are diligent in saying, my risk profile has now changed. We may need to stop production and service on these risky clients. Any new clients you come on, run the credit check, but know that that's a historical view. It may not reflect their current financial situation. So take things with a grain of salt, but be very careful with extending terms to new clients as well as existing clients, because while they have potentially been a very good payer in the past, they may not be able to continue to pay you, on a regular basis. So you may need to be creative with your terms, whether that's payment plans or accepting credit cards, or even restructuring the way that you offer your services. Even if you did, if you used to have a service that, had 10 steps, maybe only, quote one of the 10 and do projects bit by bit, that will allow you to retain that client and also, mitigate the amount of exposure you have from an accounts receivable perspective. If you've never accepted credit cards, it's now not a bad time to accept credit cards. Let the onus be on the credit card company to collect those debts. Also, some credit cards are extending payments for, 30, 60 days. So they may be able to get better terms with their credit card company than you. So that 3% fee that you pay, people don't like to pay that fee, but I think it's better to offer that service to clients to keep that cash coming into you, sacrifice the 3%, but you get the money in your bank in a day or so. And then the next thing, which is kind of obviously, is to follow through on your accounts receivable. If you don't have a process now, make sure you do. Be proactive. Let your customers know that you can't finance their business by paying late. Of course, do this in a very friendly way. If you're lucky and you're working with an accounts payable person, they may not be able to prioritize cash, what checks they're writing. And so the squeaky wheel tends to get the oil. So make sure that you are constantly in communication with your clients. Let them know, hey, did you get my invoice? Hey, it's coming due. Hey, it's due and I haven't received payment. So, you could do that in a very friendly way, but just letting them know that you're on top of it will not allow them to slide, or at least you'll be able to get a handle on what the situation is earlier, rather than waiting for 30 days for that invoice to be past due and then try to collect it when things are tight, even more so for them. So cash coming in from your clients is one piece, and then cash coming in from your borrowing options is the other. So knowing your credit options, including your loans of credit, your credit cards, knowing what interest rate and terms and what credit you have available to you is really important to sit down and take that step. Whereas knowing what your options are will allow you to make better decisions as to what things you need to tap. As far as borrowing with banks, know your loan covenants and understand if you'll be able to meet them. It's really important that you know where you stand. And going back to my first slide about having that plan, knowing where you're going to wind up in 12 months and 18 months, and being able to share that with your banker, or have an idea of what that means for your loan covenants. If you have receivables or collateral, inventory, whatever your collateral is for that loan, knowing what the impact of your available credit is going to be important. So pick up the phone, call your banker if you think you're going to have an issue. You may want to think about tapping your line of credit judiciously to put some of that money aside if you think it's at risk of being pulled back. But know that remember that many of these covenants, these loans, are tied to personal collateral and personal guarantees. So think about the impact on you personally if your business doesn't survive. Those are pretty risky moves. So just do that with with a level of caution and with a plan in place to make sure you can pay it back. And we may need to go back to our startup days of friends and family, personal reserves. Like, where are we going to get the money to make it to the end of this crisis? We don't know what the time horizon is. It could be 30, it could be 60 days, it could be longer, but we know it's going to be a slow recovery. So making sure you have enough cash that your business can survive is important. So we talked about defense, which is cutting costs. We talked about offense, which is managing your cash inflows. And the last piece of cash conservation is speed. Things are changing very quickly, so you have to be decisive and make those hard decisions very fast. That means writing out your scenarios so you can game out the options. again, going back to that plan and saying, if this happens, then that, making sure that you have that put in place before you need that plan is important for you to make decisions without the emotion. So if you know that if your business is going to drop by 10% and you need to make a round of layoffs, you've already made that decision on paper before that happens. So when that 10% comes, you follow through with the plan. The speed also means you need to be reviewing your cash plan weekly at a minimum. Don't wait, a week or two. Things are changing very quickly. That needs to be revisited weekly at a minimum. And then, while we're more in defense mode right now, reading the market and knowing what's going to go on as far as the changes in the recovery or the changes that are happening to get you to recovery. So make sure you're looking at the options and that are available to you and thinking creatively outside of the box with your business the way it is today. The last thing I want to talk about is speed and headcount cuts. And we've seen two camps. We work with a lot of entrepreneurs. We're in a lot of groups. We have two camps there as far as headcount cuts. It goes slash and burn, which is, deep cuts very quickly, or they move very quickly and cut costs. And the other is hold and wait, which is, people aren't really ready to let their staff go. They're burning through a lot of cash, holding on, waiting for the PPP loan to come into play. Today is the 16th of April. Yesterday, the PPP loan ran out of money. We expect it to be refreshed, but those decisions that you're making, anticipating that money to come in, may need to be made sooner rather than later. With any headcount cut, I can't stress enough, make sure you speak to an employment attorney to make sure that you are in compliance. You don't want to survive this and then wind up with major lawsuits at the end. The Department of Labor, Federal Department of Labor is a revenue source for the federal government. And so there's going to be a lot of issues coming out of this. So make sure you talk to an employment attorney. So that kind of wraps up the presentation. Just as a short summary, again, we talked defense, that's cost cutting, levels 1, 2, and 3, and slowing your cash outflow. Offense, meaning maximize your cash inflow, making sure you're getting all of that funding in and knowing your borrowing options. And third, speed, being decisive, but being informed and making headcount reductions at a time that preserves your cash as much as possible. So that's all for our presentation. I want to invite you to our next webinar / open Q&A. That's going to be on PPP loan forgiveness. That's going to be on Tuesday, April 21st at 2:30. You can register at our website here below. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Mel or myself at hello@profitlink.com or give us a quick call on our phone. We'll be happy to help. So if you need help at all with putting together your plan, putting together a 13-week cash flow forecast, or helping in cost cutting, or determining what to do with your loans, etc., please give us a call. We'll be happy to help. We offer a 30-minute free consultation to anybody who gives us a call. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you at our next webinar.